So, what happens when one part of your brain absolutely craves meticulous order and routine, while another part is constantly chasing novelty, impulse, and, yeah, even a little bit of chaos? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. The complex, fascinating experience of having both autism and ADHD, a combination the neurodiversity community has a great name for, AuDHD.
And that powerful thought comes from Dr. Khurram Sadiq. For him, you see, understanding AuDHD wasn't just some clinical exercise. Nope. It was a deeply personal journey that kicked off after he lost his father, and it ended up unlocking a lifetime of unanswered questions. So we're actually going to start with that personal story because it perfectly sets the stage for why this whole conversation is so incredibly important. It shows us how a new diagnosis can completely reframe an entire life.
See, on one hand, Dr. Sadiq remembered his father as this incredibly principled, meticulous guy. But there was always this other side, right? Impulsive, a bit reckless, someone who was always struggling with insomnia. After his dad passed, it all clicked. These weren't contradictions anymore. There were two sides of the same unrecognized coin, AuDHD.
And this really gets at the core of the struggle. His father, and so many people like him, basically lived in this kind of limbo. He didn't quite fit into the neurotypical world, but because his presentation was so unique, he might not have been fully understood even within neurodiverse communities. It's just a really profound kind of isolation.
And that brings us right to the heart of it all, the central paradox of AuDHD. This section's title, Order Meets Anarchy, actually comes from Dr. Sadiq's own TEDx talk, and man does it perfectly capture that internal experience.
So, what is AuDHD exactly? Well, here's a really key point. This isn't some formal medical diagnosis. It's a term that grew organically from the neurodiversity community itself. They created it to define the very specific, nuanced experience that happens when autism and ADHD show up together.
And get this overlap is way more common than you might think. A 2022 study estimated that somewhere between 50 and 70% of autistic folks also have ADHD. So we're not talking about some rare exception here. This is a huge co-occurrence that, for the longest time, was just completely missed by clinicians.
This quote, wow. It comes from a conversation Dr. Sadiq had with a patient. She was a woman in her 50s who had spent 3 decades, 30 years, going from one specialist to another, never getting an answer that made sense. She was super organized in some areas of her life and a complete mess in others, the classic ADHD paradox. This was the moment of clarity she had literally waited her entire adult life for.
So here's the crucial point. It's this constant internal tug of war. The autistic part of the brain is wired for consistency, for structure, for knowing what's coming next. It loves routine. But at the exact same time, the ADHD brain is saying, no, I need something new, I need stimulation, let's do something spontaneous. You can just imagine how exhausting that internal battle must be every single day.
Okay, so all of this is leading us to a really fundamental shift in how we think about this stuff. It's about moving away from an old, kind of limited view and embracing a whole new way of looking at the human brain. And it all boils down to this one simple but profound question. Are we looking at a set of disorders that need to be fixed? Or are we looking at natural variations in the human brain? Simply a difference. On one side, you've got the old-school medical model. It frames these conditions by focusing on deficits, on what's wrong, on impairment. But the neurodiversity paradigm, it flips the whole script. It absolutely acknowledges the challenges, but its focus is on strengths, on unique perspectives, and on accepting these variations as a totally natural part of human biodiversity.
Now, this shift didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was built on the incredible work of pioneers. Back in 1993, autistic advocate Jim Sinclair wrote Don't Mourn for Us, which was a total game changer. Then in '98, Judy Singer gives us the word neurodiversity. And check this out. It wasn't until 2013, that the official diagnostic manual finally, officially allowed doctors to diagnose autism and ADHD at the same time. Okay, now let's pull the camera way back. To an evolutionary scale. What if these traits, the ones that can cause so many challenges in our world today, were actually a massive advantage for our ancestors? What if they were a superpower? From an evolutionary perspective, it makes total sense. That intense focus you see with autism, absolutely invaluable for crafting the perfect tool or tracking an animal for days. That high energy and impulsivity from ADHD, perfect for exploring new territory or reacting in a split second to a predator. See, the problem isn't the traits themselves, it's the mismatch between our ancient wiring and our modern structured world. There's actually a name for this idea. It's often called the hunter-farmer hypothesis, and it goes a little something like this. In a hunter-gatherer world, these traits were basically superpowers for survival. But then, as society shifted to farming and then to industry, we created these highly structured 9-to-5 routine-based environments. All of a sudden, those hunter traits started to cause friction, and that's when we started to see them as a disorder.
So, where do we go from here? Well, it means we have this incredible opportunity to reframe our world. The goal is to move beyond just, accommodating differences and to start actually truly celebrating them. And the cool thing is, this isn't just some theory. It's actually happening right now. Just look at the tech industry. Companies like Microsoft and SAP have these amazing neurodiversity hiring programs. And why are they doing this? Because they get it. They recognize that traits like intense analytical precision, deep focus, and out-of-the-box problem solving are huge assets that drive innovation. They don't see it as a liability. They see it as a competitive advantage.
And that, right there, is the heart of it all. At the end of the day, true inclusion isn't about ticking a box or making a few small adjustments. It's about fundamentally changing the culture, building a culture that genuinely understands, respects, and knows how to unlock the incredible potential that comes from all these different ways of thinking.
So, as we wrap this up, I'm going to leave you with this question. And it's not just for big companies or for educators, it's for every single one of us. In our own lives, in our workplaces, in our communities. How can we start redesigning our worlds to not just accept, but to truly celebrate every single kind of mind?